In this video, I'm going to show you the #1 mistake that you're probably making if you're trying to automate your business right now. The real problem that everybody's running into is that they're not harnessing their data properly by putting things in Airtable. And in this video, I'm basically going to give you the Airtable copy and paste structure that I use for every single client that I set up. And I've worked with dozens of clients right now to do the exact same thing that I'm about to talk to you about, so that you can generate a ton of foundational AI agents, special AI agents, personal assistant AI agents, AI workflows, out the wazoo, contract flows, onboarding flows, literally everything. Let's get into it. All right, so basically, let's get into why this is important. And this is an example of one of the Airtable systems that I've done. This is for a friend of mine, Camillo. This is my website link, icarusgrowth.com. Go and click on it, enjoy yourself, all that good stuff. So you probably already have a bunch of SaaS subscriptions already. And these SaaS subscriptions are, if you are a sensible business person, your CRM, project management systems, tools that you're using to fulfill your service, and a myriad of other tools like email, Google Drive, Slack, WhatsApp, Zoom, Discord, Go High Level, ClickFunnels, Fireflies, Fathom, Figma, Klaviyo, Kit. All of these things that are needed, Canva, all of these things that are needed, but not really important in certain ways, and just add a lot of different extra stuff that you need to pay attention to whenever you're doing the things that you're doing in your business. When you use a ton of software, you have your data siloed across multiple different tools, leading to a mess of a system where you need 28 different Zapier automations that you can't keep track of just to make things talk to each other. So what I'm going to do is basically give you a very simple Airtable baseline structure that solves every single one of these problems. It's the one thing that absolutely nobody is doing, which is really annoying. Everybody's just focusing on these amazing Telegram, hey, can you book me a call with so-and-so at 4 p.m. automations that don't really matter because they don't really go anywhere and they don't reference a system of people that can easily be picked up by these AI agents. So I've given this as an example or as an idea of what goes into making a system that is infinitely scalable, i.e. the one-man agency before. And it at the top is dashboards, and then you have like the AI automations and AI agents that go into all of the things, and then you have the interface and like what you're actually clicking on throughout your time going through the systems that you're using. But none of that matters if you don't have a back-end database. You don't have back-end data management. And there are 3 things that are important here, and I'm going to spend most of my time covering Airtable bases on this video. So let's have a look at the setup. This is a very simple database, which I've compiled and turned into the 80/20 so that you don't have to think about the way that this is set up at all. So it starts off with the company name obviously being the person that's just been signed, and their full name, the full name of the client that you're speaking with. Website URL, if they're active or not, the onboarding status, the contract link. In fact, I'll open this up not in the guest share view, I'll open it up in the main view. All right, so here is an example of the actual database, but from the view that you'll be able to see when you copy this into your own system. And if I look into the fields here, I can just go through them one by one. So client name, website URL, active status, onboarding status, contract link, contract duration, contract finish date. All of these play a role. And I'll explain this when I go in to look into what my current onboarding flow looks like. Every single one of these plays a role. None of these are unimportant. Then you have account manager, what their name is and their Slack user ID. Ops manager name and their user ID as well. ID, this is where I'm going to focus on. This is where I'm going to focus the rest of this video, simply because this is the thing that matters when it comes to the automations that you're going to make with the AI agents that you're currently using. We have a few IDs. Slack user ID. Slack channel ID, Google Drive folder ID, RAG folder ID, which is another Google Drive folder, CRM lead ID, namespace ID. These are super important because what will end up happening is when you have a ton of different information from different places, if you can reference their IDs in one place, then you can reference every single bit of information in that weird part of the silo over there. So for example, if I'm looking for information on a client and I know that client has messaged something that I do not know if the thing that I'm looking for is inside of my own systems, but I know that they've messaged the Slack channel, I can have the ID of the Slack channel and then use automations to comb through that entire channel if they have permission to it and find the thing that I need. That's the reason why Slack channel's there. That's the reason why Google Drive folder is there, because you can get documents if needs be. That's why RAG folder is there, because you can use this to import. This is just like an easy way for when I go into talking about how the Pinecone stores are updated. I'll talk about why the RAG folder ID is very, very necessary. CRM lead ID for everybody that's gone through the sales process, and then the namespace ID. And this here actually isn't an ID that gets entered in by automations. It's actually a formula, just because of the way that Pinecone, which is the vector store, works. It's just taking the company name, and if I just put my name in here, you'll see what it does. If I put Icarus Growth in here, then it will take the company name and it will create this right here, Icarus-Growth in lowercase. It's just a way to make the namespace something that we can reference, because it's literally just a field that we would need to drag in every single time to reference that small subsection of the vector store, which is where we're going to look for documents, look for information, look for all the stuff that's the proprietary data of the business that other automations will be feeding in as things go and as things happen, so that they can be referenced by the agents that would be pulling from those places. It's just a way to make the queries a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. Then we have linked deliverable, and these fields here are linked records, meaning they will just be ways to reference one part of the Airtable base to the other part. And one important consideration here for people who don't know what Airtable is like, Airtable is just Google Sheets on steroids. It's just a rich text and rich formatting and attachment based version of Google Sheets, where you can link one table to another. So clients can link to team can link to deliverables, client can link to deliverables. This is a link from client to deliverable. So if we go there, that's the clients. Team is very much a lot of the same stuff. It's just what's the name, what's the job title. You can go into any of these fields and edit them and change them. You can change the type. You can turn this from single select to multiple select if you wanted to, or you can just add extra options here. Like maybe I want to add the owner and I want to add the CTO, for example. We can have those there and then we can click save. Very, very simple, very normal understanding of exactly how this will work. I'm going to gloss over this just because there are more videos that I have where I'm actually building this from scratch and you can see how they work. Then you have the Slack user ID, which is again another ID based on the same principles that we're using when we have the IDs inside of clients. We may want to be able to direct message someone based on something that's going on, where we need to take somebody that's assigned to a particular deliverable and alert them about something. We don't want to make an automation for every single new team member. We don't want to make an automation for every single new deliverable or every single new table that we create. So what we can do is just store a user ID here and then have that be referenced in any automation that we would like, which is the importance of IDs yet again, which I'm going to continue to stress on this video. And then you have deliverables here. Deliverables are, and I've used deliverables here as a catch-all term for whatever you'd be doing if you are developing a service, because most services will create a deliverable. Email marketing companies will create campaigns, they'll create flows, they'll create emails. Landing page agencies will create websites. Marketing companies will create blog forms, blog posts and briefs and a bunch of other things if they're broad scope. Invoices for wedding venue management companies, they could all be, weddings would be one of the deliverables. If they're just a general events company, then they may be also photo shoot or whatever it may be. Deliverables is just a catch-all term. If you want if you have different deliverables, just duplicate this page and then just rename everything. And that's how that would always work. But same as with every project management system, you'd have the backlog, the rejected, the blocked, to do, in progress, amendments needed, to review, done. All of this here is the project management system that lays the foundation for every single bit of information that any AI and automation will use when it comes time to sticking things into NAN, sticking things into Make in order to reference what you're doing. And to kind of like top everything off, I've created these two automations. This one here is just for whenever there's a new deliverable, we'll alert the team after a wait function of 20 seconds, because sometimes there'll be times where you'll add a new deliverable by accident and then just delete it, or you'll add a deliverable and it's not been fully updated. So we give you 20 seconds to just add the stuff that you want to add, like a title or an assignee. And then here is a blank script which we have used to send the details to make/NAN. So all you would need is just a webhook URL. You just replace all of this stuff here with a webhook URL and it will fire off and send over the record ID. And that's all you would need for that. And then the notification system works based on the deliverable status. So if it's rejected, it goes through here. If it's blocked, it goes through here, to do, in progress, amendments needed, to review, and done. All the same stuff. The only difference between all of these is that the deliverable status will be different every single time. So when you call it or when it pops out on the other end, you get the record ID, which is where you can grab the data from all of the information on that card, and you can get the deliverable status. So you can just route things from one place to the next. So that's the way that it's been designed. I've made this multiple times and there's videos on my channel on how to create these as well, but I've just embedded that there for you too. And then we have the Airtable base with the interface, which is the place where the team most likely going to work. And here is where we move things from the backlog over to, to do or in progress, amendments needed, to review, or done. You can view it in Kanban form, you can view it in a calendar, and you can view it in a grid. And if you decide to click on any of these to make any edits, you can see here that there's a task size and there's details for the deliverable. So if this is a very urgent task, for example, it could just be put as medium. If it's high impact, it could be like that. And if the task size is small, then it will be this. If the task size is medium, it will be this. If the task size is large, it will be this. And these grow based on a formula that I've already set up, which makes all of this make sense anyways. So that is the Airtable base. You could take this right now and have the best foundation for any automations that you would ever make for your business. You could scrap whatever project management systems that you have, and this will work for you 10 times out of 10. So that's the breakdown of the setup. Now, why does it actually work? This is the $1,000,000 question. So I've gone in to talk about IDs, and I've gone in and talked about a lot of the reasons as to why the system has been set up in the way that it's been set up. It's because of a term that I like to call payload augmentation. Now, this is by no means a real thing as far as, real terminology, which has had, articles written about it. This is basically the best way of explaining exactly why this works. And it also feeds into the hows of how AI agents are able to do what they're able to do. Payload augmentation means enriching your core client data with all of the relevant reference points across your entire tech stack. So as I've described, when you want to call upon information in other parts of your tech stack, you can query your Airtable, search for a client or a record, for example, grab an ID, and then use the ID to fetch everything that you need from the software that is somewhere else. This is how your automations and your agents are able to, for example, pull sales interaction history from your CRM, query your agreement terms via the contract, because if you have access to the contract ID and someone's asking questions about, hey, you said that you were going to do this, why haven't you done this? And you want to refer back to the contract in the middle of conversation, you can simply go into an AI agent. You go into your AI agent, instead of going in and opening PandaDoc or e-signatures or whatever you signed the person on, and then having them going through and combing through the entire document, you can just go to an agent that has access to your Airtable and say, my client name has told me that they are saying that this was meant to be part of the deal, and I don't think that's the case, but I just want to double check with my contract. Can you just read the contract that I have that we signed to determine if this is the case? Because if it is, then I'll apologize. If it's not, then I won't, and I'll just be gung-ho and stick to my guns. What will happen is the agent will go into your client base, grab the contract ID, find the contract, download the text on the document, and then add that text to the top of what's called its context window. And the context window describes every bit of information that gets spit out after or whilst an NAN bot is doing what it's meant to be doing. So you'll see that when you deal with agents, and I'm not going to do this whilst not showing it on the screen, but when you talk to agents, you put the first message in. Once the first message goes in, it spits out a bunch of things. It finds other stuff. And then if you look at the logs right near the bottom, it's a really big message, which it then distills into what it gives you as an answer. That is how payload augmentation works. And that is how we're able to use the Airtable in order to help the agent do its job correctly. Pool sales interaction, query the agreements. We can fetch documents, client calls, emails, Slack Connect channel messages, all of that stuff from the vector store if it's in there. We can access shared files from Google Drive, and we can find contact details for multi-channel communication whenever clients go AWOL. So if we don't have their email, but we have their phone number inside of our closed CRM, we can just find the lead ID via the Airtable, go and find the phone number and say, oh, this is the person's phone number that we have. We also have, on top of this lead, we have the COO's number, not just the founders. We also have the operations manager's number. Do you want to reach out to any of these guys? Just like that. So when your agents need to perform actions across multiple systems, having all of the necessary IDs and references in one place means that they can connect the dots between your different platforms. And what you're doing is you're creating a digital nervous system. And this digital nervous system is where all client touch points can be connected and accessible through a single and well-structured reference point. And this is a feeding ground for AI agents and AI workflows. If you don't have this, you need this so that the automations that you feel like are going to delimit the bottlenecks that you have can actually be put into place in a way that's not just well structured, but actually does the problem or solves the problem for every single person that is being affected with the problem. Now, the next step, once you've taken the Airtable that I'm going to give you, which you can check inside of the link in the description for the link, the next step is to get your company data in there. And this consists of two things. So the first thing is batching, which is as simple as going into your, let's say, for example, you wanted to move your CRM into Airtable, which I actually don't recommend because I believe CRMs that are designed as CRMs are meant to be used for the sales team, and the sales team actually shouldn't be going anywhere near Airtable, and it should actually be the other way around. So if the sales team needs information on a current client, they should be able to query an agent that will go into Airtable and find stuff in Airtable so that they can go back into their CRM space and just be over here, just chilling and understanding that, okay, this is the information that I know I need to be working with. This is where I'm working in general. I want some information about some clients so that I can talk about case studies and feedback and stuff. I'm going to ask the Airtable as opposed to, taking the CRM and putting it into Airtable, because you can't email and call people through an Airtable CRM. I don't like them, but people have their own ways of doing things. So it just means exporting a CSV file of your current system, sticking them into Google Sheets, formatting them, downloading them, and then importing them into Airtable. There is no cheaper, faster, or non-technical way to do it than that, which means you're going to have to get your hands dirty, click export a bunch of times across the rest of your tech stack, and then just format everything so that the rows and so that the columns that you have are in alignment with the tables inside of your Airtable. Take all of those, import them into Airtable, and then it will just appear in front of you. That is data migration. You literally will never use this if you do not migrate your data inside of there. So that's the first thing. Now, upserting means creating clients, tasks, and team members via automations in present time. So batching is getting past historical data into your Airtable. Upserting means making sure that from now on, we have the information that we need. And here's where the most important automations that every service-based company needs comes into play. And this is what happens when a contract is signed and paid, and what happens when an onboarding form is filled. So I'm going to now walk you through the new look onboarding automations that I have in my business, and I'll show you a glimpse of one that I've done for a client. So I've gone through a very similar version of this automation before. It's actually one of the first videos that I put on my channel, so I can give you a link to that, but that will be under the 10x your client capacity playlist that I have on my channel. But this automation here, and I'm going to zoom in so that you can see everything. This automation is the contract sign flow, and this happens every single time someone signs a contract. So in PandaDoc, which is the source of truth for us, whenever somebody does something to a document, this webhook will trigger. So it will trigger whenever someone views a contract for the first time, when one party signs it, when the second party signs it, when the third party signs it, when all parties finish the contract, and when the contract is paid via PandaDoc as well, because PandaDoc has a direct link with Stripe. So in all of these situations, we can make certain things happen. What we're doing here is we're just paying attention to whenever someone will close someone, i.e. whenever someone will sign the contract to get started, and when someone will pay, because there's usually a bit of a gap between the two times. And PandaDoc is really good with those updates, so that's why I stuck with it up until now. So that's the first thing we do. Then we get the tokens, which is just getting in all of the information that we're going to put into the rest of our systems. Now, the only reason why that's there is because I actually messed up the getting everything from here. So that's just another get request, basically. Then we route things in one of two ways. Now, most things are, so you can see that this kind of looks very similar to this. So I'm just going to go over the top branch, which is when someone signs. But when someone signs, we get a contract signed message, which looks a bit like this. New client signs. Name. Hold on, let me close that. Name, email, company, offer. They should be added to Slack and Airtable very soon. Click here to view the new client. And that is a direct link that takes them to the interface, which is this part here. But for the clients, it will take them directly to this part here to basically say, okay, click here. You'll see them pop up. When it all pops up, you'll see that this is the information that needs to be done. So just a way of us understanding what's going on. Then we go into GPT and we just do some date conversions, because for some reason, whenever we formatted the date inside of the automation itself, using the formats inside of using the functions inside of Make, it just didn't work. So we just used GPT to do it instead. And we wanted to do it in an ISO format. So it'll be 2025 15/5 if it's today, for example. We take the date, we convert it, and then we search for the client inside of our Airtable. And then we basically look for the client. If the client is found, we update them. And if they're not found, we create them. This could be replaced with an upsert, but we basically just have done this every single time. So we create the client and then update the client. And then we store the client records ID, and then we download the contract and send an onboarding email with the contract attached to it, so that that's always in their files. Now I'm going to open up this create client part, because this is where everything that we've spoken about up until now comes into play. So we have the company name, we have the full name, which is the first name and last name. We have the status of the client, active. So this is my own system here, including my own like onboarding questions and so on and so forth. So don't worry about the differences that you can see. Slack Connect channel ID is blank for now, because that comes in later. Email is there. Amount total is there. The current contract duration time, if they're doing split payment for one of my offers. All of their onboarding questions we leave blank, and then we have these at the bottom here. So now we have the Close CRM lead ID, because we generate our contracts using Close CRM's custom activities. So it's just a form fill, which means that we're actually able to take the lead ID from Close whilst someone's playing around with the contract and like signing it. We still store the sales information. We take it from where it came from, and we're able to place it here. So we just take the lead ID from Close CRM and add that here. We have the document ID for the contract that was made, which is step 1. We've updated their onboarding status. They haven't paid, so we click no. We click the scope. We put the scope details in there, which is just a part of the contract. The client the end date, which is the result from the GPT here, the date conversion, and then the start date, which is just now in ISO format. So these are all things that are used to fill out all of these bits here and everything else whenever we sign a contract. And then we send the onboarding emails, and then we go through this path here where we take the record ID of the client, and then we route it through a number of different automations that we've already made. So this is the Slack channel creation, HTTP request. This is for Google Drive folders, and this is for CRM updates. Now, the way that this works is when we send the record ID as a packet of data through an HTTP request to another automation, we can basically trigger it and do certain things in a way that makes it such that whenever one thing goes off, we basically just split the automation into multiple parts. If you've seen the first version of this, it was an absolute cacophony. It looked terrible. I hated seeing it, and it broke actually quite often because something small would happen on module number 85, which meant that modules number 1 to 84 just would never run. They would just stop. So we just split it up in this way. Ignore the technical element of this and just look at the labels, because the labels will explain exactly what we're doing. But we pick up the Airtable ID, we get the record, so now we can start to add more stuff to that same record that we added under this create client step here. Then we create the channels, we invite the bots, we send a message, which we send a message to our client, which we then pin which is as simple as, hey name, thrilled to have you in here. This is where all of our conversations will be. The team will be here to answer any questions you have. If you haven't already, fill out do the onboarding call and fill out the onboarding questionnaire. If you're unsure about anything, ask me in here, yada, yada, yada. And then we pin that. So when they join, that's the first thing that they see. And then we invite the Slack Connect user. And if that breaks, we manually invite them and yada, yada, yada. So that's the step number 1, which is creating Slack channels. Step number 2, the Google Drive folder hierarchy. This is where, and I'll show you here right at the end, just inside the Airtable steps, this is where we are adding all we're doing is we're adding the record to the record ID. We are adding the Slack Connect channel IDs, which are right here. So now we have the ID for the Slack channel that we've made. So now whenever anybody signs, we will always have that link there. We will always have a channel with a pinned message welcoming them with everything that we would need in there. Then we have the Google Drive folder hierarchy. Now, this is just search, and if it's not there, find, and if it is there, just upload the contract, create links, and then just share documentation folder. So I'm going to glance over this, but basically we download the contract again because we have the contract ID in our Airtable. We get the document and then we upload it. Then we create a share link to the contract. We search for the documentation. We search for a documentation folder if it exists. I do a lot of client documentation. So when I'm explaining the builds that I make for different people, I'll record a Loom video. I'll take that Loom video and a transcript, and then I have an automation such that when I fill in an Airtable form, poof, inside of the Slack channel that we've already designated in step 1, which is this automation here, a little message comes up saying, this is the title, this is the document, this is the Loom video. Claude has written the entire SOP for exactly what I've built, and it all gets housed inside of a documentation folder, which they then get access to. So we create a documentation folder, and then we search for a RAG folder, and this RAG folder is where all of the call transcripts go when they get taken from Fathom. So every single call that I have where my Fathom bot is in there, it will download the transcript and then stick the transcript in here. And then once it's been downloaded here, it will be re-uploaded into NAN and then stored into a Pinecone data store, which is a whole other automation, which I'm going to show in another video because it is absolutely fantastic. So that's that. Then we create the RAG folder, and then we add the IDs again. So you can see we're building and then we're adding the IDs. We're building, we add the IDs. Google Drive folder, documentation folder, and then we have the contract link, which we put here, and then we have the RAG folder, which we put down here as well. And then the final thing that we do is we just update the CRM. We already have the CRM lead ID, so we don't have to actually update them if necessary. But we have a second step in here just to make sure. And then we just make sure that the opportunity is marked as 1 whenever we've done the things that we need to do inside of the CRM. So this is an example of a very, 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 very important automation which powers everything that happens the moment a client signs. And it also ensures that any agents that you're using, that you're working with, have information about the clients that you're going to be working with without you having to automatically add that stuff to the system in the first place. So TLDR, you're going to need to do 3 things. Oh, I actually need to show once again the onboarding flow. So what happens whenever an onboarding form actually gets filled in. So 1 second. All right. So this is a very basic one, but basically the whole idea is that whenever somebody has filled in the onboarding form, they used ClickUp instead of Airtable, which was a pain in the butt, but we move anyways. We take the webhook, which is what gets triggered whenever a form is filled in. So it's the same steps as it is with Airtable as well. And we get the form submission, we get the client, and then we link the onboarding form to the client, and we create one if none exists, and then we send it over to the market research. This is for an email marketing client. So we send the onboarding information, the information from that form, and we send it over to the market research agent. And what this market research agent does is it will format the onboarding outputs. It will, and then it will get sent to an AI agent, which is going to use Trustpilot, DeepSeek, and Google Drive to generate a market research document and then respond to said webhook to basically put the information inside of their own ClickUp. So that's basically how all of that works. So TLDR, you need to do 3 things. You need to put the client stuff in place. You need to shape the client journey, which we did with a couple of nodes that I kind of glossed over, where you're sending emails which say, this is where the onboarding form is. Go and click on the onboarding form so that you can fill it out so that we can get started. here's the link to the onboarding call. Also pay up because you haven't paid yet. And then number 3, launch the client effectively, which you do with the information that has been generated by the market research. So in summary, a single source of truth is the key. It is the key. You have got to have the Airtable system like the one that I've described above. Number 2, data uploaded into the system. And number 3, a contract/onboarding automation that puts the first bits of work in front of your team without you lifting a finger. Data really is the linchpin, and being able to scrape data, use RAG, create and call the vector stores that you'd be making, which I'll have a video on soon, and build Airtable and Postgres databases to basically augment your agents and make them work efficiently will be the difference between a gimmicky AI agent that you made one time that you've never used because you don't like it and it doesn't do what it needs to do, and a suite of very powerful bots connected to every single element of your tech stack that you set up once and leave alone completely, that seamlessly integrate with your entire system with the click of a button. And if you haven't already, watch my video on relational databases. That will be linked below, and I'll also probably link it somewhere. If you are looking for the Airtable base that I described above, that will be in the link to the description. If you want something less cookie cutter, there'll be a link somewhere to my website where you can talk to me about having that built for your business as well. Take it easy.